Picture this: a Roman soldier on horseback encounters a nearly naked beggar shivering in the winter cold. Without hesitation, he draws his sword, cuts his military cloak in half, and gives one piece to the stranger. That night, he dreams of Jesus Christ wearing that same piece of cloak. This single act of compassion would change Christianity forever. Meet Saint Martin of Tours. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're exploring the extraordinary life of Saint Martin of Tours, the patron saint of soldiers, beggars, and France itself. His journey from reluctant warrior to beloved bishop is filled with miracles, courage, and a revolutionary approach to Christian leadership that still inspires us today. If you enjoyed these saint stories, hit that subscribe button and let's dive into this incredible tale. Martin was born around 316 AD in present-day Hungary to a pagan Roman family. His father was a military officer, and according to Roman law, sons of veterans were required to serve in the army. But here's where Martin's story gets interesting. He had already secretly converted to Christianity and wanted nothing to do with warfare. At age 15, Martin was forced into military service and stationed in Gaul, modern-day France. Unlike other soldiers, Martin refused to participate in looting or violence against civilians. He saw his role as protection, not conquest. His fellow soldiers mocked him, calling him a coward, but Martin had a different kind of courage, moral courage. The turning point came during a brutal winter in Amiens. Martin encountered a beggar at the city gates, nearly naked and freezing. Other soldiers passed by, but Martin couldn't ignore the man's suffering. He took his sword, cut his thick military cloak in half, and gave one piece to the beggar, keeping the other half for himself. That night, Martin experienced a vision that would change his life forever. In his dream, he saw Jesus Christ surrounded by angels, wearing the half cloak he had given to the beggar. Jesus said to the angels, "Martin, who is still only a catechumen, clothe me with this robe." When Martin awoke, he understood the profound meaning of Christ's words from Matthew's Gospel. "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." This wasn't just about helping a beggar. It was about recognizing Christ in every person who suffers. Martin immediately sought baptism and tried to leave the army. When his commanding officer accused him of cowardice, Martin boldly declared, "I am Christ's soldier. I am not allowed to fight." To prove his courage, he offered to stand unarmed at the front lines of the next battle. Miraculously, the enemy sued for peace the next day, and Martin was finally discharged from military service. After leaving the army, Martin became a disciple of Saint Hilary of Poitiers, one of the great theologians of his time. But Martin felt called to an even more radical lifestyle. He became a hermit, establishing one of the first monasteries in Western Europe at Liguge. Martin's monastery was revolutionary. Unlike the harsh, isolated monasticism of the East, Martin created a community that balanced prayer, study, and service to others. The monks didn't just retreat from the world, they actively engaged with it, preaching, healing, and helping the poor. Martin himself became famous for his miracles. He raised the dead, healed the sick, and even stopped a massive fire through prayer alone. Word of the holy hermit spread throughout Gaul, and people traveled from far and wide to seek his blessing and guidance. But Martin's greatest miracle might have been his approach to evangelization. Instead of forcing conversions, he won hearts through example, kindness, and genuine care for people's needs. In 371 AD, the people of Tours faced a crisis. Their bishop had died, and they needed a replacement. Unanimously, they wanted Martin, but he wanted nothing to do with it. He preferred his simple monastic life to the politics and responsibilities of episcopal office. The people of Tours had to literally trick Martin into coming to the city. They sent a messenger claiming that someone was dying and needed his prayers. When Martin arrived, he found himself surrounded by crowds demanding he become their bishop. Despite his protests, he was essentially forced into accepting the position. As bishop, Martin was unlike any religious leader of his time. He refused to live in luxury, instead continuing his monastic lifestyle. He established the first rural parishes in France, traveling constantly to remote villages where no priest had ever been. He destroyed pagan temples, but not through violence, through patient evangelization and the power of his example. Martin also stood up to imperial power when it conflicted with Christian principles. He opposed the execution of heretics, arguing that the gospel should be spread through love, not force. This position was so controversial that some bishops refused to associate with him. Martin died on November 8, 397 AD, and his funeral became one of the largest gatherings in Gallic history. People came from across Europe to honor the soldier saint who had transformed their understanding of Christian leadership. His influence shaped medieval Christianity in profound ways. The monastery he founded became a center of learning and evangelization. His approach to rural ministry became the model for the entire Western Church. His feast day, November 11th, became one of the most celebrated in medieval Europe, and interestingly, it's also the date when World War I ended. Armistice Day. Saint Martin is the patron saint of soldiers, conscientious objectors, beggars, tailors, and France itself. His military cloak became one of the most revered relics in medieval Europe, and the word chapel actually comes from capella, meaning little cloak, referring to the places where his cloak was venerated. Today, over 4,000 churches worldwide are dedicated to Saint Martin, more than any saint except the Virgin Mary and Saint Peter. Saint Martin of Tours shows us that holiness isn't about perfection. It's about recognizing God's call in unexpected moments and having the courage to respond. From sharing his cloak with a beggar to reluctantly accepting episcopal responsibility, Martin consistently chose compassion over comfort, service over safety. His life reminds us that we encounter Christ not just in prayer or church, but in every person who needs our help. In our world of division and indifference, Martin's example of radical generosity and humble leadership is more relevant than ever. What moment in Saint Martin's life inspired you most? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible saint stories. Until next time, remember that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change everything.